That's me streaming. Chris, I'm gonna stop your video and mute you and display a title card until everyone gets in here. Once everyone's in here, we'll start it again. All right.
Okay.
I'm on Teams though. We need everyone in here. Oh my gosh. Okay, I can. I just asked you to start your.
Hello.
Hello, hold on just a second. I got to figure out how to get everybody else in here. I'm getting messages from Melanie. We use Teams, not Zoom, so I'm sure people were relying on. Hold on just a second. I got to figure out how to get everybody else in here. I'm getting messages from Melanie. We use Teams, not Zoom, so I'm sure.
Hello.
Hello.
That Jeff may understand to go in and use his Zoom app since we're connecting to Zoom through a link.
Yeah, is it possible to join this through a URL so I can send it to our other person, or does she have to join with the ID?
The app since we're connecting to Zoom through a link.
Yeah, is it possible to join this through a URL so I can send it to our other person, or does she have to join?
Angela, could you please mute the YouTube live session? There's echo going on from your mic.
Our other person, or does she have to join?
What?
Angela, could you please
Can you hear me?
Hi. Yes.
Okay, good. I'm sorry. I didn't realize I had that live session open on this machine. I have another machine sitting next to me that I've been using for that. But when we were trying to figure out what in the world to do, I must have clicked on that. Okay.
Heard other technical difficulties. Are all the presenters here?
No.
We're still waiting on one. She's gonna have to download the Zoom app and put that meeting ID in. She's working on it, but we can start without her. She's not till the end.
Okay. So this session is called Creative Resourcing Strategies for Handling the Tech Talent Shortage. I'm Karis, and I'm here in Emporia State. And we will have the Q&A after this session, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And this is the presenters are, and I didn't have time to correct this. If I'm wrong, I apologize. Angela Neria, Jeff Burns, John Kuefler, and Lydia Winters. And thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. Karis, can you help us we need a URL made available to the folks listening in. We're going to ask them to fill out a quick survey for us. How do we best handle that with that being streamed through YouTube?
Sam, can you help them?
Sorry, one more time, what was that?
I'm going to put a URL in the chat for those of us on, chat's disabled. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, chat is disabled on Zoom. No one will be able to join Zoom, but the session is live on YouTube right now.
Right. I was going to send it so that one of you, the ESU staff, could make it available on YouTube while we're presenting. So I guess we'll skip that part. Okay, let me share my screen. It's working on it. You guys see it yet?
Yeah.
Let's see. John, you might try it. My system preferences show that it's sharing. Can you guys see anything? I have a big blue frame around my screen.
Yeah, I'll give it a try. Let me know if you can see mine.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Thank you for working with us through those technical difficulties. We are here today to talk about creative resourcing. There are 4 individuals from Pittsburg State University, and one of those individuals also happens to own a really cool development company here in Pittsburg, Kansas. So we're going to talk a little bit to you about who we are and what we do. Jeff, if you would introduce yourself first and describe what you do for Pittsburg State.
Yes, my name is Jeff Burns, and I'm having a little trouble with my video, and I will try to get that corrected. And I am the Director of Development Implementation. And basically, I lead our programming staff here at Pitt State.
All right, and I'll just keep it going here. My name is John Kuefler, and I am an instructor in the College of Business here at Pitt State in CIS, and I'm also co-founder and co-owner of DevSquared, which is a software development company here in Pittsburgh as well.
Hi, I'm Angela Neria. I am the Chief Information Officer at Pittsburg State University. And just a little fact, Jeff and I work in the same team. John Kuefler used to work on our team, and he went out into the world of Pittsburgh, Kansas, and put together a really cool company called DevSquared, but he also still teaches at Pittsburg State, as you heard. So we have some close ties from that direction. I'll turn it over to Lydia.
Oh, you're muted, Lydia.
There we go. Hi, I'm Lydia Winters. I'm a PSU student. And I also work as a student employee at Pitt State in the marketing department, working on the website. And I also work at DevSquared as a part-time front-end developer and designer.
Awesome. Thanks, Lydia. Okay, so a little bit about our story. We are each going to share our perspectives of how we are working through this strange time in IT of never having enough people to do what we need them to do, and how we really came to this creative resourcing way of working. So each of us are going to share a perspective. John's going to share his perspective from the owner of an independent development company, as his work as a CIS instructor at our university. Jeff will share his perspective, as will I. And then Lydia, who I think you'll probably find her perspective the most interesting, is going to share her perspective from a student and a future employee. And now I shouldn't even say future, because you really are. You are in that role. So, and then we'll follow up with some question and answers. So we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, and you guys have seen this most likely if you're in this session. Basically, we have a problem in the IT world. Tech talent is hard to find and it's hard to keep, especially when we live in the Midwest. A lot of people find better paying jobs in larger cities on the coast and are drawn to those areas. So we really wanted to look hard at how we could find good quality folks and keep them at our university and in our community in IT practicing positions. So the strategies that we will share today include the following. We'll talk about how we recruit college students that are in our institution today, how we hire those students before they graduate from college. We try and get them before they go. We train them on technology skills that are closely related to the needs of the institution and the community. We really focus on where we want to go, what our goals are as a university, what our mission is as a community, the Pittsburgh community. We also work on expanding their soft skills. because for many of them, this is their first time working in a professional position. So soft skills are critical. Create a fair but desirable salary and benefits package in the process of doing this that will hopefully allow us to retain them. And then probably one of the most important things to this whole puzzle is developing a culture that will really keep them here. Creating a culture not only in our university, but in our community and how we work with our community and expand opportunities in Pittsburgh. So we would like for you guys to share. Originally, I know this link isn't live. I'll try and go in while someone else is talking and put this in the YouTube chat, which is kind of what I was asking for before, but I don't think I got the message across very clear. I'm running 2 different machines here, so I'll try and go in and do that on my other machine so I won't cause any echoes. But we would like for you all to take a chance to take the opportunity to fill out a quick survey for us so that we can kind of see where you stand with doing some of the same work and possibly have the opportunity to share with the group. Okay, thank you.
So I think we're going to get into our 4 perspectives here, and I'm going to start that off. So, you know, I have a lot of hats that I wear, you know, through my former role at the university, working with Angela and Jeff, as a full-time instructor at Pitt State, and of course, as an owner of a company that does software development. And what I want to focus on today is kind of how we have tried to address not having enough tech talent, because our company has grown very quickly and we are constantly overloaded with work, which is something that I'm sure most of you can relate to as well. And hiring good people is a challenge. And so we decided pretty early on that the approach we were going to take was to mostly hire students during school or coming out of school and kind of try and shape them into what we needed as employees. And you know, the reason for that is there's a couple of reasons for that. One thing is for savings, cost savings, but also there's a risk versus reward aspect. So let me talk about these in a little more detail. So we like to hire students while they're still in school, part-time, and that way I can pay them more and hopefully they can work somewhere else at the same time and make a good amount there as well. And by working for us and for someone else at the same time, they're able to make a pretty good salary that is probably way better than the average student can make, while we're all still able to save some money that way. Versus kind of the risk of hiring a full-time employee, there's always that chance that it won't work out. There's things you have to provide with benefits and things like that that are costly. And so there's this big risk of full-time versus part-time. And so we've chosen to kind of try and avoid the full-time risk and hire part-time. The other thing too is, you know, you may hire a full-time employee and, you know, they come with a whole set of skills and opinions and sometimes baggage that, you know, a lot of times it's great and you're able to find a fit for them on the team and they bring new perspectives and stuff like that. And that's always wonderful. Sometimes when somebody brings in perspectives that kind of clash with the culture at your institution and you don't realize that till later, it can cause issues as well. And so I think kind of molding someone in your culture can be a big benefit there. And the other thing for us is keeping talent in the community. We will go out of business if every good developer leaves town. We won't have enough staff to service our clients, and it'll become an issue for us in the long term. And we want Pittsburgh to grow. We want our community to grow. Tech is the future, of course. And so if we're able to keep this talent in our community, it's going to work out a lot better for us. So we usually take 2 approaches with training our students, apprenticeships or internships. So if we have a student who is bright, eager to learn, but really doesn't have a whole lot of background in the subject area we want them to grow into, we'll start them with an apprenticeship. And this is purely a personality thing. So we gauge their personality, their fit for the job that way. We know they can learn, and that's how we approach it. And so for 4 to 6 months, we treat it as a completely non-productive position. We will pay the minimum wage and we will teach them. It's like they're going to school at Dev Squared for 6 months, and we are pouring time and resources and energy into them so that after that point, they become an extremely productive employee. We've had some really, really good results with that. In fact, I would say some of our highest performing employees, that is the route that we took. And that initial investment can be difficult, and it could end up as a loss if it doesn't work out. But if it does work out, you have a huge gain there. We also do regular, more traditional internships. And for these, we'll pay the students a little bit more. We do expect them to be a little bit more productive, and we are still teaching them stuff, but we're relying on their skill set that they've learned in school. So for students who have learned a more technical skill set in school, we'll kind of start them in an internship and continue to grow them, but we'll pay them a little bit more, we'll expect a little bit more, and we'll spend less of our time just teaching them. And we've got a whole host of success stories from these methodologies. So Lydia, who's on the call today, started out as a front-end intern. Now she's a front-end developer here at DevSquared. She's no longer an intern. And of course, she has a position at Pitt State as well. And that started from her working here, and they wanted a front-end web developer in the marketing department. And I said, hey, let's split her time. I'll pay her for half the time, you pay her for half the time. That way it's less costly for both parties, and she gets a good compensation package. Then we have David, who started out in our apprenticeship program. And David now works for Jeff in ITS at Pitt State, and for me still. And he's a back-end developer here. So we graduated from apprentice to intern to full-on back-end developer. We have Annie, who was a unique case. She came to us because the HR department at Pitt State needed somebody to do analytics, and that is, of course, an area where there is a big-time talent shortage. So we worked with HR. We found a student who had the right mindset, the right attitudes, who was graduating. We brought them in, kind of apprenticed them for a month or two. She grew into that role really well, and now she's the full-time HR analytics specialist at Pitt State. And we had Aubrey, who came to us as an intern. We were able to have her for about 6 months, and then she sadly was stolen away by Coke, and she's doing very well there as a systems administrator. And we currently have an intern named Sarah, who is a front-end intern and has been doing a really great job and is learning a lot. So I'm hoping we get to keep her longer term. In terms of how that all fits into our mission and our culture and how we work with the community, it's really all about a culture of partnerships for us. So we work very closely with Pitt State, and we have a culture of resource sharing, of talent sharing, and I think that's absolutely critical to what we're trying to do here, both in terms of long-term retention, but also just in terms of fostering future partnerships. We also are very into community engagement. So if we're going to get tech talent to stay down here in Southeast Kansas, in Pittsburgh, and not move away to these more attractive areas like Kansas City or Wichita, we have to have a culture that is appealing to them down here. And so to do that, we've done things like started coding camps in the summer. We were having, before all this COVID stuff started, monthly developer meetups where developers from the community were getting together. And we've really tried to kind of foster a community that tech talent wants to be in. So it's not just your company's culture. It's not, just what you do personally for your employees. It's the culture of the community you're in that will really help to not only retain tech talent, but also bring it in. Because that's something that people look at when they're evaluating, do I want to move somewhere for this tech position? What's the culture like? What are the resources like? Will I be able to continue to build my skill set and grow and meet other people? And things like what we tried to do here with the community and with Pitt State, I think, are a huge step toward that goal. We can get tech talent to stay. So that's kind of my perspective. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jeff now.
Thanks, John. So as I'd said before, I'm the Director of Development Implementation at Pittsburg State. And just a little bit of background, whenever we hire new developers, it takes between 6 and 18 months, depending on that incoming developer's skill set, to actually fully bring them on board to a state where they can contribute independently as a team member. And what we've discovered as we have brought different people on board is that this, and in working with John's company, and also in our own programs before, we would do internships and things of that nature to be able to have a way to test the waters for prospective employees that are currently students that give us kind of a leg up on getting them into our culture and testing that out. Um, it's it's a great way for the student to get to know, or the potential employee at that point to get to know us, and it's a great way for us to get to know them, kind of evaluate their skill set and see what um, they can offer and we can offer them basically. It also helps to have strong relations with an outside entity or local company like Dev Squared that helps us get our folks um, to kind of to be able to get talent in the area potentially working for Pitt State, or as John had stated earlier, his main goal is to keep talent in the community. And that's kind of one of our common goals as well, is that we want to be able to provide a good working environment and attract tech talent that want to stay with us long term. And I think we try to promote that type of culture that appeals to a certain segment of tech developers. We're a very collaborative environment, and we like employees that like that collaborative work. Uh, it's definitely been a different phase during this time of that collaboration, but luckily with us, um, my team has transitioned really well to the remote work, and even though we worked in a highly collaborative environment, we um, definitely um, have transitioned to that really well to online collaboration, which has been fantastic. One of the other things I wanted to point out is that um, we also work with our faculty to identify potential student employees, and so at that point, it's a great resource if you tap into your faculty and say, "Hey, do you got any students that?" Are good in this area or that area that might be looking for some part-time work or as a student position or even an internship, depending on what meets that student's need. It helps us kind of to capture that workforce before they get out of school into the wider workplace and get them experience so they learn from it as well as we benefit from it as well, and finding those different relationships and projects and things like that that work well for that part-time employee is something that we look forward to doing every day as part of our work, because we do that anyway whenever we onboard new developers. And one thing I would really want to hammer home is don't ever discount a student as a part-time or full-time employee. We have now had, as John mentioned, um, a developer that is a part-time employee, but we've also worked with students that are graduating in the near future where they've come on full-time as part of our staff while they're finishing up the last couple months of their school. So, um, so as I mentioned before, we collaborate with Dev Squared a lot on a lot of different projects, and we outsource some programming to them that we can't fit through our pipeline that other people need done. But over the last 6 to 12 months, they've also started offering some opportunities to share employees, to train employees, do some different things like that, and we've really tried to take advantage of that. And as I mentioned before, we're always working to identify projects to grow the skill sets of our developers anyway. So no matter whether they're an entry level employee or they're somebody that is a one of our top developers, we're always looking for the right projects for those folks to grow and stretch them on a normal day-to-day basis. And our current employee that we're doing this with, who's a temporary part-time employee, he started working on a fairly lengthy project for us that was an integration that was fairly well defined, but a lot of intricate detail work. And David came to us with the right skill sets. He'd already been working part-time with Dev Squared. He actually was one of our help desk techs for our student help desk over what we call the Gorilla Geeks. And luckily, I think Bill, our manager over there, is still a little sore at me for robbing one of his good employees, but we jab each other on that a little bit every once in a while. But he jumped into this library sync project with minimal training, and that project is on track to be completed. And the supervisory requirement is about the same as a trained developer one. It's not even the same supervisory requirement as I would go through with training up a new hire developer. So I definitely think that relationship's been a win-win, and we're hoping to be able to expose David to our culture so that we can give him a reason to want to come on with us full time after he completes his schooling. So those are some of the things that we're really enjoying the benefits of right now as part of this process.
Hi, this is Angela again. I wanted to remind everybody that in the chat on YouTube, we do have a link to a SurveyMonkey survey now up there. If you have a chance, it's just a few questions. We'd love to know what others are doing. And if we have a chance at the end of this session, we can share the results with you as a group and hopefully learn from each other. So this whole thing has been interesting, as you can imagine, and you can see how passionate John is about doing this. And so his passion really has lit a passion, I think, for us in making this work. And he's been a great leader and visionary throughout this process. But selling this to my boss, the president, to the HR department, to the CIS department, and et cetera, was a job. It wasn't a hard job. It wasn't as hard as I thought that it would be at all. Our president was very much in favor of it. But if you're like us, we have processes on our campus that have been there for a long time and they've never been changed and they've never been challenged. And so doing things differently and out of the box, hiring, part-time employees, not student employees, but part-time employees that were active students and hadn't graduated yet, meant new position descriptions, new entries into the HR system, et cetera. So you can imagine there was some work there to do. It wasn't terrible, but there was some justification and some convincing that had to happen. So here's some of the reason, or some of the tools that I used, I guess, to justify going down this road. And the first one is really simple. Our students, just like your students, know our culture. And they have an affinity for our university. They're there, they're planning on graduating. They probably like it. They're probably having a good time there and finding it valuable. So it's a positive. There are savings to this. It's much less expensive for us to train and employ a part-time student. They're going to make more than a student employee, but we're not going to pay them as much as a full-time person right out of college while they're still in school. So there are some benefits there and certainly less risk. For us, and for them, we get to figure out what kind of employee they are. We get to train them up, see if they really fit with our culture, if they fit with our very team-oriented mentality, and they get to see if we're a good fit for them. So the risk really is definitely lower for both of us to give it a shot this way first before going into a full-time arrangement. And that just kind of goes to my last point, is these are mutually beneficial opportunities for both the students, PSU, and Dev Squared. Dev Squared is getting great work out of their students. They're getting their interns. They're getting an opportunity to train them. They're getting an opportunity to work with the university and really know what we're doing on campus from an IT perspective, which I'll mention in one of my future points leads to more partnerships directly with Dev Squared. So, and some other points, we want PSU students to be successful, just like you want your students to be successful, period. if things don't work out, we still have positive experiences to learn from and grow from by everyone involved, Dev Squared, students, us, so we all can grow from whatever happens. So giving our students an opportunity to work with us on our campus at a lower rate, but more than they would make as a student employee, and certainly more than they would make if they weren't working at all, gives them an opportunity with experience, gives us an opportunity for some more production and building some team-oriented activities with that person and the rest of our team. Relationships are created with external developers that have really led to some ongoing opportunities. And this list is very short. It could be much longer. We've worked with Dev Squared on many, many things and partnered out with them on many things when we flat out just did not have the bandwidth, the human bandwidth to get the number of projects done that we have requested. Two very recent things that we thought would be interesting to share are we have a chat tool that we use on our campus. We presented on that before, many of you do too. And we went to Dev Squared and said, you know what, we don't have time to expand this for all the other areas on campus that need this during this COVID-19 pandemic. Can you help us? So Dev Squared was able to jump in quickly, and I can't remember how many additional chats you ended up working on. Could you share, John?
Like 10 or so channels total from one. So it was quite an expansion.
Yeah, so we went from having one main IT chat to adding 9 or 10 more. So registrars, international office, admissions, financial assistance. And I just looked at some chat numbers today from the last week, and it's amazing that how quick it's become a popular tool. And it's very customized for those areas. Another thing that we've been working with John's group on that in this time that's been so unique and so awesome and having this relationship is right now we're working on a contact tracing app with John. John's team is building an amazing contact tracing app for our county for COVID-19. We have an app that we have to use anytime we visit campus. And we have to answer 4 brief questions. If we answer yes to any of those questions, it's immediately our supervisors in our HRS department are notified. John, and working with John, we were able to take that much further, and John's vision and his team's vision working with students like Lydia and David and the others that we've mentioned is really was to create a contact tracing app for the entire county. And John worked with our government relations person at Pittsburg State, and they met with the city and the county to explain this app and the importance of having this tool to get buy-in from them. And they did it. So we have this tool that's ready to go. I mean, it's ready, 99% ready. And John and his team, and along with these student interns, have done a wonderful job developing it. And now we're waiting to get it published. So very exciting work. And those are just 2 examples that are directly connected to the pandemic. But if I were to list all of the examples that our partnership has entailed, I would need 2 or 3 PowerPoint slides, no doubt about it. So from a Chief Information Officer perspective, those are the great points that have come out from my perspective. And I think our president would probably share those same points, if not more. We've been very pleased with the partnership and with the students' work. It's been outstanding. So very happy with the program so far. Turn it over to Lydia. Thanks.
Okay, so I'm Lydia. My major is graphic communication with an emphasis in web and interactive media. So that's in the graphics department. So, you know, it is a little different. You wouldn't think like I would be doing like as much front end, but I did have the choice to do like a CIS major, but I decided to go with the graphics end. What have I learned? So with both jobs, I've learned, a lot of like technical skills with like new coding languages. At Pitt State, I learned how to use like more of like a CMS. Here, I learned more like Vue, JavaScript, like all this technical stuff. But I feel like probably the most like best skills I've learned would probably be like time management and communication and stuff like that. Because I learned technical skills sometimes at school. I probably got a little more deep into those with this opportunity, but you don't always learn the time management and communication skills in class. So that's a really good opportunity. I chose to do this because I knew that it would help me get ahead, just like in the career world. But I also applied at Dev Squared because in my program, you have to have an internship. And so when I was doing that like 6-month period as an intern, I was also getting class credit for it. So that's why I initially chose to do it. And when John was like, hey, do you want to stay a little longer? I was like, yeah, of course. Why would I say no to that? And then when Pitt State came along, they're like, hey, do you want to do this? And I'm like, yeah, of course. It's a great opportunity. I wouldn't ever pass that down. And I definitely think it has prepared me to work full time. I mean, I'm technically almost working full time now as a student and working 2 jobs, which a lot of people don't, a lot of students don't get that opportunity. So I've learned how to make my work and my school like 2 separate things, but it does kind of feel the same sometimes, you know. Some projects I've worked on. I think one of my favorite projects that I've worked on was we did a redesign of gus.pittstate.edu. It's kind of like a portal where we have all of our links. We redesigned that probably a couple months ago. And I don't know, that's kind of fun because I look at it every day, you know, at work. So that was something fun that we did. We also just recently finished a project with a company here in town called Miller's that I designed. It's kind of a place where when you get your yearbook pictures taken, your parents can like log on and buy your pictures. And that was probably like one of my first projects where I got to like meet with the client and really like hear their feedback like for the first time, which, you know, was kind of scary, but you know, I got good feedback, so it was okay. So those are some of the projects, and there's a ton of projects I go on, but those are some of my favorite ones.
Awesome.
Okay, so I guess now our last slide is in regard to questions. If you all have questions, I think Karis or someone from Emporia State will receive those, pass those on to us, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have about this program.
Right. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
There is a question here. I'm going to refresh real quick just to be sure I have everything. It comes from John Haverty at Washburn, and it says, do you have any plans to lock in new hires so that they remain for a year or 2 after spending time and resources on getting them up to speed? And it cut off. Right. So then I think what he's trying to say is that they get them certified and everything, and then they tend to move on to other places.
So I kind of have my own answer for that, and I'm sure you do too, Angela. So if it's okay, I'll kind of address that from my perspective, because I worry about that sometimes too. You know, being here at Dev Squared, it's a problem for us, just like it is for Pitt State. But I actually don't like to lock down or restrict what they can do too much. You know, I know we've invested a lot in them, and that right there, I think, shows them that it's worth staying. Being too restrictive on what happens after that, I think, is not necessarily a good idea, because there are other places that won't do that. And anybody working in tech right now, especially, you know, like a programmer, knows that they can go pretty much anywhere, work from anywhere for anybody. And so you really have to get them to buy in organically to what you're doing. If you try to kind of artificially lock them in, I think that can cause issues. And I also think you need to let them have outside opportunities. So not only does Lydia work for Pitt State and for us, she's doing freelancing too. She's been approached by people to do freelancing, and we don't really have any restrictions on that, because I know that if that's what she wants to do and we don't let her do that, she's just going to go somewhere else where they will let her do that, or she'll go somewhere where she starts her own thing. So from my perspective, I think it's good to be, you know, have policies and stuff like that. That's fine, but try and not be too restrictive in that area. Giving employees that freedom, I think it can be a big benefit. It's a big way to make them show that we trust you, we care about you, and what you want to do.
Yeah, I would echo those comments, John. Basically, we don't place any kind of restrictions on that either, in terms of trying to lock anyone in, because it's that type of thing where everybody, or at least in our environment, we are trying to get people immersed in our culture and give them other reasons to stay. We know in higher ed that we are not going to be the most competitive on pay. So there has to be other compelling reasons why we want to keep people. And that's one thing that is nice about utilizing students, because there's already a reason that they're in the area coming to our university for an education. And so with that, there's already kind of that desire, at least, to be at Pitt State for their education. So we want to give them a desire to be at Pitt State for their career as well. And that's kind of the approach that we take. And so far that has worked out well for us. And it's like John said, you're always at risk in the IT industry of people being able to, and especially in the developer shop, now they don't even have to live anywhere in particular to be successful at their career. There's a lot of remote work out there. And so we as our ultimate goal, even if they're going to move on somewhere else, if we can encourage them in a way to still be a member of the Pittsburgh community and make this their work from home location, that's still a win for our community and our area, keeping that tech talent local.
Yeah, and I'm trying to answer a couple of questions on the YouTube side too, but I agree. I think for us, we don't require anyone to stay X amount of time. We do a lot of training and give our folks a lot of opportunities. And I feel like it's in our wheelhouse to create a great culture, great morale. That's part of my job, I feel like, to retain folks. And I think Jeff would say the same about his position at Pitt State. I think our president would say the same. We don't try and lock people in. I sure don't want to keep someone at Pitt State that doesn't want to be there. That's not good for anybody. We try and create reasons for them to want to be there. We already know that if you work in education, you're likely intrinsically motivated because you're going to make less money than working out in the public sector, most likely. So we try and keep that intrinsic motivation high, morale high, culture high. We have a very team-oriented culture. Voices are heard and they're expected to be heard, which can be hard with tech folks sometimes. But I have to say, I think we have really well-rounded folks and well-rounded leadership that really push that kind of environment. And I know John does as well at DevSquared. There is a question. I don't know, Karis, if you have any more questions. And there's a question from Corey Faldine, and it is just asking us to kind of clarify the savings. So he asked, are the savings using part-times at higher wages instead of students at lower wages because you have fewer students with more responsibilities, or for another reason? And it's not letting me put my whole answer in here. It's limited to so many characters and it won't let me put another comment in, I guess. I don't know if there's a limit on how many times a person can comment. So my answer is it's less expensive and less risk for PSU to hire a part-time employee versus a full-time employee. It is for anybody. We can pay a part-time employee more than we can pay a student employee. So our goal is, but the responsibilities are greater. There's a very comprehensive position description, et cetera. But our goal with this whole deal is we want to create an attractive package. So for a student, that isn't too hard to do if you can give them higher wages than a student employee, right? I mean, and include them in a team like a colleague versus sometimes how a student employee feels. I don't know about any of you, but I was a student employee all the way through college, all 3 degrees. And there's times I felt like a doormat. But that's just the way it is, right? You go get the coffee, you get the burritos, whatever you have to do. So We don't do that. These folks are treated like true colleagues. They get paid a little more, but it's less risk for us. It's a better package for them. And it creates motivation to do a really good job because most of them want to become full-time. So that's how I would answer that. I don't know if there's other comments from Jeff and John and
I would
Lydia.
just echo that, you know, from the private sector perspective, it costs a lot less to have a part-time employee working 20 hours a week. You can pay them higher hourly wages because you're not some of these other huge costs like health insurance and stuff like that. And I know that stuff's important, is an important benefit for a lot of people, but for students, it's a little bit less so because a lot of times they're on their parents' insurance or stuff like that. And so they're not looking for that quite as much as, you know, maybe someone a little bit further down the road. So it can kind of be a win-win for everybody. They get more cash in their pocket probably, and we save a lot of cost on the back end.
Yeah, I think what I would add to that is that basically the way we look at the difference, we've had interns, we've had student type employees, and then we've also now had these temporary employees. And the differing factors there are mainly, or the main factor there is the skill set. Our interns and student employees, we train them from almost zero skill set to whatever level they can attain during the time that they work for us, versus the temporary employee that we hire that also happens to be a student. They are coming in with a skill set, and we're looking for that skill set, and that's why we're paying them more, that they're ready to hit the ground running. They already kind of have that, and through our partnership with Dev Squared, and also reaching out to instructors and things like that, they can help identify those students that have those higher level skill sets that may not have easy opportunities somewhere else, where we're willing to utilize their skill set and take on that risk, of that training cost. But so far, our experience has shown us that they can jump in and hit the ground running better than hiring a new employee fresh out of college that doesn't have experience at all with a particular development environment or things of that nature. And so you do have to match that up to get that benefit value. But that's the distinction for me anyway, of somebody that's at a student employee level versus one of these part-time temporary levels that also just happen to be student.
Thank you guys. We really appreciate everybody being here. I apologize for our technical difficulties. And we will email any questions to the presenters with emails to reach out further if needed. We really appreciate you guys very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you guys.